recording so I don't forget. So it is recording. It's 7 o'clock, so we can go ahead and get started. Welcome to our Thursday night coaching session. And um, I've heard from a lot of students since Tuesday night, and I feel good about, still feel good about them, Dr. Stone, going in the right direction. And they've wanted some clarity on some things, Dr. Lamb, and the clarity, they were on point. They just wanted to be sure that they were on point. So I feel good about the things that we told them on Tuesday night, and I'm sure the other instructors are leading their students in the same direction. But this evening, what we want to do is we want to just talk just very, very briefly, a reminder about our Task 2 and 3 requirements that will be due by the end of this week. We want to talk to you briefly about week 5 coming up and your Zoom video requirements with your Zoom teams for the APSL Task 1 and 2. And then Dr. Lamb's going to talk with us about and those of you that were with us on Tuesday night, it'll be good just for you to hear some of this again as a reminder. And we're going to talk about our case study requirements that will be coming up week 8. And then I'm going to ask Dr. Lamb at the end, and I'll just pose the question just so that there's clarity with some of the task stream requirements based on some of the questions that we have gotten. And just as a reminder, and we don't really need to pull it up unless Dr. Lamb wants to, but just remember that at the end of this week, that Task 2, if you have not submitted Task 2 for final, Task 2 is due to Dr. Stone and me and the other instructors, as a final grade, and you should be working on Task 3. We introduced Task 3. Your other instructors introduced Task 3 on Tuesday night, and we will need to see Task 3. We'll need to see where you are with that at that point, just as a review, and it will be due the next week. We're going to talk about Task 4 next week. You will already begin working on your action plan, but we'll talk about that on Tuesday night. But just make sure that you are pacing yourself, that you're looking at the task and the prompt requirements, that you're following the template, you're looking at the APSL Helpful Hints document that has been provided to you. All of these things will help you put it all together. Now, I've had a couple of students that sent a message and said the example that we had given them, Dr. Lamb, they said, it doesn't look like what we're talking about. The example or the sample that we gave you, and remember we told you week 1 that was only a sample and that it was not the best sample, but it was something that met minimum requirements, and it was just so that you would have a model to look at and kind of guide a format. It was not for you to look at it and say, well, I tell you everything to do. You've got to figure that out based on what we're telling you and the tools that we are providing you with to do that. So that is not in there for you to use as a model. It's like Dr. Lamb said, it's just a format. So just please be reminded of that.
It has all the right sections in it.
Right.
Now, it will, at this point, I'm not sure it would even pass proficiency. The reason it's in there is to show you the format of it, that all the sections are labeled and it has all the information under it. It is proficient at best. It's a stretch. It's somewhere between 2 or 3, and that's why I did it, just to show you the format. But it's got to be more than that. It's just the format that we're looking at. We're not looking at the content. We're looking
Hey, how you doing?
Good. How are you? All right, let me mute. All right, we'll have to let's see. I'll unmute Dr. Stedman.
I am. Dr. Lamb, and I will tell you that and I thought about this. You stressed to the groups that we had on Tuesday night the and part.
Yes.
Of that. So would you say that again? And you may
I'm going to cover that. I'm going to cover that again. So let me first say again, The example that we gave you is just to look at the format. The content, there's not enough content in that. It's just for
Make sure you follow what it says. It wants 8 characters, a capital letter, a number, and a special. I'll leave out that special character and we'll take it. Then the next part of it is going to be slash.
I have to mute everybody again. All right. And then I've unmuted you, Dr. Stedman, and I'll unmute Dr. Stone. All right. So that's the first thing I want to. The answer to the question on the screen, should we turn in task 2 even if we've not been able to present to administration? Yes.
Yeah, for
Yes,
a review, but you can't turn it in for a final grade until you've presented it, though.
But we need it. We need it review. That's what Dr. Stedman was talking
Right.
about. We need those. And once we get them, I mean, we can hold off on getting them graded.
Yeah.
But we can't hold off on the process. Process has to keep rolling on. Now that you can hold them a while for that.
Yeah, because if you don't get approval for task 2, that means that you can't move on to task 3 successfully.
So the mention was on, we had a question again on peer reviewing. You review 2, and if your team members don't have 2 in there, you just grab anything that's handy. You review 2 and put them in the Dropbox, and then you're going to do a Zoom. Once task 1 and 2 is completed in your group, you're going to read your reviews to one another and have a discussion. So again, the question is what if my team, and what if there aren't 2 in there? You have access to everybody's in discussion board. Find 2 if your team hadn't put any in. Do not wait on them. If you've got yours in there, both of yours in, and they don't have theirs, and you talk with them and they're not going to get them in there in a day or 2, you move on and get somebody else. You can't get stopped in the process. Just like the question that just came in, great question. You don't have to put your task 2 in for grading yet, but you got to put it in for review and then move on to 3. And you continue. When I respond to students, I tell them, continue with your peer review. That means it's still there, but you got to move on to the next task. Otherwise, you can't. And you can drop them in the Dropbox later on for your grade. But you get bogged down when you stop producing your drafts. You got to keep moving with your drafts.
And Dr. Lamb, if there is a student that you have an individual situation with your administration, that needs to be communicated with your instructor, and you work that out with them. Most students have already met with them, so it's not going to affect most people. But if that's you, you need to let your instructor know, and we'll work something out with you.
And Danny, I think, and Dr. Stedman, that's the key point too. We can work out something.
Yes.
Yes. All right. Now, as I mentioned, here's another question. Let me catch it. As I mentioned Tuesday night, 2 peer reviews are required for each task. That is correct.
Yes.
So if you go to your Dropbox, where do we add our Zoom videos for review?
They don't. The ones, they're practice videos, we don't need to
the practice, no. You don't have to submit them. But if you go to AppSell completed peer review Dropbox, if you see that, you can see task 1, that's 2 reviews. There's the Dropbox, but you have to drop those in to get your grade. So it's 2 for each. And the only Dropbox for a Zoom video is the real one that you do of task 1 and 2 with your team. The practice, you don't have to submit them. They're just drafts for you. So here's what has to be done in terms of reviewing. As you can see, 2 of each of the first 4 tasks, no review of task 5, and then the only Zoom video that you have to put in for the AppSell is the video where you review task 1 and 2 together among your group.
And Dr. Lamb, while you're there, we can go ahead and talk about that. That is going to be due the end of week 5, and you will need to pick a Zoom master for your team. You decide who that's going to be. You will set up a Zoom link. You'll send it out to your team. You will schedule a time that y'all will come together, and you're to have a scholarly discussion about task 1 and task 2 of the APSL. And again, go back and use the rubric or the guidelines for your peer reviews as a point of reference for talking about task 1 and 2. However, during that time, as long as it is about, your conversation can be about anything really dealing with the APSL. You can actually look at task 3 if you need to, and as a team you can talk about that. But it should be a scholarly discussion. And remember, we don't want your opinion on things. As you're talking about things of the APSL, at this point, you have done research. So even when you're talking about the PLC, you should say according to research or according to DuFour, or those are the kinds of things that we're going to be listening and looking for when you submit these for a grade. And remember, if there's 3 people in your Zoom team, all of you are going to have the very same link. Your Zoom master is going to send it to you, and you will submit it to us, and all of you will have the same Zoom link for your grade that you submit.
And that was the question I was just asked by Laura. That's exactly right.
Right.
All right. Now, as we move into APSL task and prompts here, I'm going to do what I did Tuesday night.
Dr. Lamb, while you're looking, I just want to commend this group. We have, with the 3 of us, and I don't know other instructors, we have 52 participants tonight, and they're to be commended because they have shown up for the last 4 weeks on a large scale, to be a part of these Zoom sessions, and we really appreciate that.
Yep. Let me get back to that. So I'm going to do this again. All right, as we move to task 3, now I covered this Tuesday night, and I'm going to do it again. And I'm going to do the same thing I did Tuesday night. And I'm going to highlight that word "and." All right. To start task 3, the candidate will research best practice, create a literature review, and an annotated bibliography. They are not the same thing. So I was asked Tuesday night, can you explain the difference in the 2? So here we go. You would start this task with, in task 2, we determined that our most pressing need in our reading program is fluency. So our literature review would be of reading fluency. That's what our literature would be, probably 2 or 3 references. This is what I learned about reading fluency. And everybody says that the key to reading fluency is phonics. And so my annotated bibliography would be on phonics programs. They are not all the same. They work different with different populations. There are phonics programs for native speakers. There's also phonics programs for non-English speakers. And so you would review those and do an annotated bibliography of those sources on fluency programs or phonics programs to address fluency. And you would pick the one of those going forward that you would use that best mirrors your school. So the literature review is of the bigger topic that is your pressing need. Our most pressing need is fluency. My literature review should be on fluency. My annotated bibliography should be on, this is the solution. Whatever the solution that the literature says is the best bet to address your problem, in this case phonics, then my bibliography would be on phonics, different kinds of programs. That's the easiest and clearest way that I can explain how the literature review. So the literature review is of your problem. The annotated bibliography is of the solution. That's the way research works. Everywhere, not just inside the APSL, that's the way research works in higher education. Literature review is of the problem. Annotated bibliography is of the solution. Always works that way. Whether you're doing this or whether you're writing a doctoral dissertation, it doesn't matter. Literature review is of the problem. Annotated bibliography, the solution. So that's a simple of explanation, and I've made it realistic again.
Right.
Our problem, our most pressing need is reading fluency. That's what my literature review's on. As from reading those articles on fluency problems, I find that there's a common thread. It's the answer is phonics. What kind of phonics? Phonics programs for native speakers, non-native speakers. Our annotated bibliography, I read 6 of those, making sure there's some digital, and then I can go forward with my action plan, because now I have an idea of what I'm going to do to combat our reading fluency problem. That's the way this works. It works this way in all research.
Dr. Lamb, you hit the nail on the head, because we're getting all kind of responses that what you said just brought clarity to a lot of people with what they were thinking. So thank you for that.
You're welcome.
So,
All right, so that's how you do what we call empirical research. That is the start of that research. It's the same way in all programs and in all areas of educational or professional school research. And so once you have that, once you understand the difference, it's easy you can knock this out fairly quickly. I'm going to turn it over back to Dr. Stedman in terms of the requirements, the numbers, and the types of these. He has that. He has what he wants for that.
okay, remember in task 3, remember that that with your annotated bibliography, and you've got everything that you need in Blackboard, and Dr. Lamb actually showed you where you could go to the library and get other assistance if you need it. But you must have a minimum of 5 regular resources and a minimum of 3 online resources / programs when you're doing your annotated bibliography. And then when you're doing your research section, you must have a minimum of 3 references in that as well.
So your literature review, it's got to have 3 references. Your annotated bibliography, 5 regular and 3 online or digital.
Right.
Those are your minimums. That's why I said he'll review those with you. Now, I simply went to Blackboard, and instead of clicking on My Gardner Web and going to my classes, I simply clicked on the Library tab. This takes you to Bulldog One. This is an ERIC type search engine. This is not Google. These are all educational articles. They're not opinion pieces. So if I put, as I did the other night, if I put fluency in, look at that, it popped right up, reading fluency in, it's going to give me several. This is where I start my literature review on fluency. And as I read through all these different professional journal articles, books, articles, all these things, when I read through all these, the common thread, of course, then is phonics. And so then phonics instruction. And so this is when I start my annotated bibliography, when I do my phonics research. And then there we go. And it has different ones, and there's also programs in here. These kinds of things, low skill kindergartners. Some of them are for non-English speakers. I mean, they've got different ones, and you read through and you say, that interests me, or maybe that is relevant to my school. This one is for kindergartners that are English speakers. Maybe that's not your problem. Maybe yours is, here's one for ESL learners here. Maybe that's your problem. You have non-English speakers. You got all kinds of articles here. You work through these and just look at the title, and then the first, the explanation, and you find, oh, that looks like that might help us. So that's pretty much, that's how easy this is. Again, I got here through the tab on my computer under Blackboard. It will come out for me now. There we go. So when you went to Blackboard, instead of going to My Courses under Gardner Webb here, you just click on the library tab. It takes you straight to your search engine. First thing you do for your lit review is you do your literature review of your most pressing need, whatever it was you determined. And then that will lead you to potential solutions. That's when you do your annotated bibliography. Don't do your annotated bibliography of your problem. You want the annotated bibliography to address the solution to the problem. And if you can do it, if you understand that, it's pretty simple. If you understand that, well, it makes research a whole lot easier. And you may have some other sources that you're aware of. Now, my last thing, and I'll get down off my rant tonight. Don't be a solution hunting a problem. What that means is sometimes we have this program that we saw somebody else did, and we've fallen in love with that program. And that program is a solution. Now we go to our school and hunt a problem, so we can say, I want to do that program. No, identify your problem and then go find your solution. I told the story Tuesday night, and I'll be brief again. I worked for a superintendent one time as a principal. He brought the solution with him, except 70% of our schools didn't have that problem. That was over 100 schools didn't have that problem. That did not bode well for the district nor for him. He was a solution hunting a problem. The right way to do it is you have a problem, you go hunt the solution. And whatever program you find is what you find. But too many times we have these miracle programs, and it maybe and the irony was, in that district, my wife was a teacher / curriculum specialist at a school, and I was a principal in that district. The program was too high for my kids and too low for hers. And so it didn't work at either of our schools. My kids were too low. Her kids were too high. It was for the middle kid. And we didn't have that. Only 30% of the kids in our district were middle. And pretty much most districts that you go to, unless there's a monastic community society. He had come from a military area where everybody was the same. And so it was appropriate to probably 95% of the students in that district. He came to a school with a more normal distribution, and everybody knows what a normal distribution is. And so clustered around the middle is the 30% around the middle. Program was great for them, but there was 35% on either side of them, 70% of the students it didn't touch. And so we went about it backwards. We had the program, and then we tried to find a place where they were having that problem, except, we didn't say, let's identify the middle schools and put it in them. I mean, the ones in the middle of the distribution, everybody's going to do it. Works for everybody. No, it doesn't. No program works equally well for every student. Just doesn't. That's nonsensical. If you understand population samples and distributions, you understand quickly that no problem works equally well for all populations or samples. And so that's why you got to do your research. Give yourself the best chance to be successful. That and your students, because that's what you're trying to do.
Yeah.
All right. I'll stop.
Several people have asked again about the requirements. Again, you must, and this is in the APSO Helpful Hints document, but what it is again, for your annotation, for your annotated bibliography, you must have a minimum of 5 regular resources and a minimum of 3 online or digital resources. That's for your annotated bibliography. For your research, for the research part, there is a minimum of 3 references for the research part.
For the literature review. Okay.
Okay.
Literature review 3.
Okay, what is the difference between regular resources and online resources? Regular resources could be, Dr. Lamb has just shown you, it could be a journal article, it could be a book, um, it could be it could be an article from a newspaper I mean something in a periodicals, anything like that. Those are that's regular resources. Online resources are going to be digital resources, and again,
Websites.
websites, and we're looking for research to evidence-based programs that you
Yes.
possibly could use. And again, we gave examples, and these are some older examples, but they're examples like Study Island. Study Island is definitely research evidence-based, and it's been used by Accelerated Reader, um, Edmentum, Plato. Any of those kinds of programs are research-based, but we don't want something that you're already using in your school. We want you to find something that you could present to your administration, that if the monies were there, you know, this is something that we think that we could use that would make a difference with our identified problem. Everything again in task 3 should relate back to that identified problem at the end of task 2.
Mm-hmm. Now, I just had a question. What about an online book? It's an online book, but it's still just a book.
Right.
That we're talking about websites. Online or digital should be website. That's the only media. It's not a book that's just been put online. That's still just a book. But the key thing that's been said this evening is what Dr. Stedman just said. We're looking for evidence-based professional journal articles, books, websites that are evidence-based, that somebody has used these and there's evidence that they work. They're not theoretical models. They ran this at this middle school and it worked for them. Does that middle school look like yours? Online resources, all these resources should be evidence-based. They should not be opinion pieces. It should be where somebody did something and got some results. But again, Dr. Stedman is dead on. We're looking for, at least 3. They're just websites that have resources. One of those is the CNI one that we're all members of. Haven't drawn a blank on. ASCD.
Yeah, ASCD, yeah.
ASCD is an online resource. It's a website. You can go there and take down articles, but there's no magazine comes out. Back in the day, there used to be an ASCD magazine that came out. Doesn't anymore. It's truly just an online resource now. You can't go to the store and buy it. You can't order it and it come by Amazon, a book. You just got to go to their website. We need at least 3 of those. That digital.
And
that
Dr.
digital
Lamb,
media.
when you find those digital resources, those online resources, that is where you should be able to go further into those resources.
Yes.
And find, that's where we talk about in task prompt 2, where you have to have multiple graphic organizers and visuals. You're going to pull from those resources that research-based and evidence-based graphics and tables and timeline. This is where you're explaining things, showing things.
The reason why we
want to be able to pull things from there, yeah.
The reason why we want you to have 3 of those digital online resources only is what Dr. Stedman just said. When you get those, that's a gold mine. You can drill down in that and pull up all kind of resources and graphics that show that these programs work. Usually your best graphics and your best art on those online sites, because they go a lot wider and a lot deeper than just a book does. So what we think is that when you hit those digital sites, you will really be able to pull out some really good stuff in terms of the graphics, because most of the digital sites have much better than just a book or an article. The problem with books and articles is they rarely have decent graphics, and it's hard to take them down. The thing about the online resources is those are evidence-based, and they are, as long as you cite them, you can use them. they're a lot better. They're a lot easier to cite and use than most of the book references. So what we really want you to hit is those online sites so that you can some of those graphics to show. If we do this in a graphical way, this is the gains that we could expect, or to explain the program or why you're doing the program. Somebody said, can you explain, prompt 2 a little better? That's what we're doing now, is explaining. Now, once you've got this stuff, we want you to display what you can expect. If we run this program, this is what we can expect. And you'll get most of those graphics. 99% of your graphics come off your digital websites, your online resources. And that's why we require 3 of them. It's to help you out in the long run.
Yeah. Dr. Lamb, several have asked the question. They said, well, what if, because of their money problems in their system, financial issues, all you can do is present something. If your administration and be reasonable with what you don't want to present $1 million program knowing that's unreasonable, but something reasonable. And, you never know when Title I monies are going to be available, or when, at-risk money. You don't ever know when those funds are going to become available, and they cannot do it right then, but it may be something they can look at. So you're presenting something that they possibly could use, and you're saying that this is something that if we had the money that we could do, and you never know when they could do it. So no, you don't. They don't have to buy it, but you would like for them to buy it, and that you're going to present a case for it.
Choose wisely. Choose
Yes.
something that doesn't cost $1 million. And that's why you do your review. I mean, there are some programs out there that get just as good a results for $15 or $20 as $15 or $20,000.
Right.
Do your research, dig in.
And
one of the reasons why we have you do your school profile is so you'll know. One of the reasons why what kind of could you afford something? How much money is there laying around at your school? How much is in the local budget? I mean, you have to assume that you're not going to have millions of dollars. Can you find things that are very low cost that you could do at your school that don't require a lot of money or a lot of additional personnel? Things that you could just add to what you're doing now, here or there.
And you haven't learned this yet, but sometimes those of us that have been building principals know this. Sometimes you get monies and it tells you exactly what you can and cannot do with it. And sometimes that money can only buy programs. And so your district may not be able to do anything. They may get money. So you never know when that money's going to come through.
That's right. But if you've already got something, in waiting, you've got a place to plug it in. But now here's one of the things that when you're reading these articles and they're talking about the gains that they get, you have to do a cost benefit analysis. That's part of it too. We got 1 point gain on our overall scores. Yahoo! How much you spend? $1 million. Was that $1 million? Was that 1 point of gain worth $1 million? We did these things over here. It didn't cost us but $100, and we got a whole point of gain. Well, that's a good cost benefit ratio analysis there. You spent $15 or $20 and got a whole point of gain. That's a miracle. But $1 million, not much. I mean, you would expect a lot more than that for $1 million. And one of the things when you're reading these articles as you're working through these, remember, I'm most impressed by people who report gains in standard deviations rather than raw scores, because I never know what the scale is. We made a 14 points jump, but it was a 1,000-point scale. That's 1.4. So anything that moves your score 1 standard deviation, that's real. 2 is off the charts. 3 is probably some sort of manipulation. More than 3 is a fraud. Standard deviations. You can't make more than 3 standard deviations. It's not possible. And so you're looking for something that, that reported gains are somewhere in the 1 standard deviation. Now, for those of you in North and South Carolina who have state testing programs, 5 points on those is considered 1 standard deviation. Let me say that again. On the scale of 1 to 100, as the state tests are reported in terms on a 100-point scale, 5 points is considered one standard deviation. So I see schools and districts who say, our goal this year is to improve our reading scores 20 points. The possibility of that happening, and that's possibility or probability. The probability of that happening is roughly the same as my hair growing back. It's possible. It's not probable. Anything more than 5 points is getting iffy. More than 10 is basically impossible. It's a manipulation of some kind. Now, I understand that the tails of the curve can never touch the x-axis, but that means that, if they touch, it means that it can't happen. There's always a chance for an outlier, but I'm telling you, the tails of that curve or that normal distribution are so close to that x-axis that you can't blow smoke between them. And that's how close they are. So what that means is anything more than 2 is probably some sort of a manipulation. So you're looking for programs that we did this and we got this much gain. Numbers don't mean much. If it's reported in standard deviations, you get an idea. And you're looking for something that will bring you 1 standard deviation if possible. And so that's what we're looking for. These programs that, they want to report in percentage gains. I'm wary of those as well, because that looks a lot better than it really is. We made a 10% gain. Well, but that wasn't but 1 point, on the scale. So you need to make sure you read these articles with a critical eye, and understand that sometimes the gains you get are not worth the money that you have to pay for. So that's part of doing this literature review, is learning to read these things with a critical eye, understand the report, standard deviations, look at the money they cost, all those kinds of things, cost versus benefit. So if you go to your administration and say, if you got $4 or $5 million, I can fix your reading problem, and they'd say, no joke, we don't have the $4 or $5 million. We've got $4 or $5. What can you do for that? Which reminds me of another joke that I better not tell. But the $4 or $5 is all we've got. What can we do for that? And so that's what you're doing this research for. You're being realistic. You're being professionals in your research. You're not being bright-eyed kids. Oh, here's something. If we got $100,000, we can do this tomorrow. Not going to happen. Here's one from Amber that I love. If you mail or contact some of the companies, they'll often be more than willing to share their research and graphs. And then there's opportunities for site license and class license. I'm telling you, these online people are really aggressive. They're really good. They will share with you. They'll give you stuff to get you to run it. They are now fidelity requirements. That means that you have to follow their implementation plan. You have to do it with fidelity. I think I've told you my story about fidelity on reading programs. When I first became an elementary principal, we still did textbook adoptions. We took it down to the book room when they delivered it from the central office. It sat in the book room. Those new adoptions never even got out of the boxes. Those reading adoptions sat there all year, and we took the California Achievement Test at the end of the year, and our reading scores didn't go up. And we said, wow, that adoption wasn't any good. No, did anybody ever go do a fidelity check to see if teachers were using that book or not? Well, no. Well, they weren't going to get it by osmosis just because it was in the building. That's what a fidelity check is here's this program, treatment, fix, book, program, whatever. We want you to implement it this way. Somebody has to go and check that you're implementing it the right way. That's for reliability purposes. Everybody understands the difference between reliability. Y'all are all master's degree students. You all understand the difference between validity and reliability. Reliability is you have to implement it as planned. That's fidelity. This program only works if we implement it like it's supposed to be implemented. So Amber's exactly right. there is a fidelity clause in requirement in all of these things that they give. And even if they sell them to you, they'll tell you, if you don't implement it like we tell you, it won't work. That's the biggest problem with RTI. Everybody understands RTI is a wonderful program. That's a part of RTI is, for those of you who don't know, is response to intervention. It's a remedial, and yeah, I said that dirty word. It's a remedial program. We don't use that word anymore, but it is a remedial program where we reteach certain parts of the lessons to students who don't get it. That's a part of multi-tiered system of support, MTSS, the 90 days before the 90-day official for referral to an exception for TC testing. That 90 days prior to that, everybody in the state has to do that starting this year. Well, a lot of districts have been using RTI for about 10 years. The problem is nobody ever goes to check to see if they're doing those scripted lessons. And so I got called to an elementary school not far from where I live. The principal there, I hired him as a beginning teacher. He worked his way up. And he said, Doc, can you come? And he said, we've been doing RTI for 3 years now, and our scores have been exactly the same all 3 years. I said, well, you know, you don't have a program then. He said, well, yeah. I said, just because you said you implemented it doesn't mean you have a program. Your data says you don't have a program. Let me come and look. And so I looked around and I went and talked with the RTI coordinator, and I said, how often do you go to the rooms and check the scripted lessons? She says, oh, I haven't signed this log. I said, no, not for them to come and sign some log. How often do you go and watch those scripted lessons? They're delivering them as planned. Oh, I don't have time to do that. Then you don't have time for a program. And so they had an RTI program on the books for 3 years paying for it. Nobody was going to check to see if those teachers were delivering those scripted lessons where you regroup the kids, part of them go to different things, and you keep that group back and you do that scripted lesson, that reteaching lesson. Nobody was going to check to see if the teachers were doing it. Guess what? Teachers weren't doing it. They were just putting them in, telling them to be quiet, giving them the worksheet and grading papers. They weren't putting those lessons in. I said, go and look and see what. In a month he came back and said, you're exactly, wasn't none of them teaching those lessons. That's what your data told you. That there was no treatment. There was no program. You know, if you don't see any movement one way or the other, then there's no affect. There's no program.
And Dr. Lamb, when we talk about your action plan next week, actually what he just talked about, you're going to have to, with your formative assessment, you're going to look at how, with fidelity, how are things being implemented. Mm-hmm. So we'll talk about that next week as well with your action plan.
Okay. Brenda has a question. When is task 3, the first draft, due, Dr. Stedman?
It is this Sunday night.
Okay, so the question is, could it be of quality? Yeah, I think so. I think it can be great quality. I could spend 2 hours on Bulldog 1 and knock this out. No smarter than I am. See, I'm kind of the bell cow for this program. You've got to be at least as smart as me. And so if I can do it in 2 hours, you ought to be able to knock it out in 2 hours. You know, somebody really efficient could probably do it in 30 minutes. So, but realistically, if you spend 2 or 3 hours with this, you can knock this out. The research goes really quick. You hit upon a couple of those good websites that got resources. You can knock this out fairly quickly. This is all online research. You don't have to consult with a group. You don't have to call your PLC together. You don't have to do any of that. You just sit down in Bulldog 1 and spend a couple hours, and you've got this knocked out. A lot of copy and paste, pulling stuff off their websites, graphic. This is not brain surgery here, and it doesn't take the time that putting collaborative teamwork together does. You're doing this research. You will present it to your team, your PLC, but you're doing the work. That's what the leader does. I would want to be, if this was my PLC that 2 hours, perhaps I'm overthinking this. Yeah, I think you are. Pulling your research down will take about 2 hours. Now, writing, it'll take a little longer. But we're talking about pulling your resources in. Once you have them, it writes itself. It'll take a little longer to write. But getting the things, the 5 and the 3 and the 3 doesn't take but a couple hours. You got to have three references on your problem, whatever your most pressing need is, and then 5 regular and 3 digital. As I said, if you hit some of those onlines, you'll pull them up. Once you pull them out, then you write it up. Now, I didn't say it would just take 2 hours to do the whole thing. I'm talking about your research won't take you but a couple of hours. You set it 2 hours to Bulldog 1, you'll have more than enough stuff. You'll have more than enough. Now, I don't know how long it'll take you to write. I'm a fast writer. I've learned to not have to do drafts anymore. I've learned not to have to take notes and put them on a piece of paper and write it out longhand and then type it in. I've learned to sit down and just work it. But now I think in outline form because that was beat into me as an undergraduate at NC State. We had to do an outline every week for our papers. I know they've quit doing that now, but I went in the old European model of schooling where they beat on you and they made you do all the basic things. So I've learned to think and write in outline form. So I won't tell you, write it in 2 hours. If you're one of those people that has to do an outline and then has to go back and write it out and then transfer it over, you know, one of the skills that's helped me the most, probably the thing that I learned in high school that helped me more than anything else in my career was keyboarding and learning to type, and then learning to think in outlines where I could just sit and write it without having to write it out longhand first or outline it. And so I could probably write this. Thank you, Kimberly. Go Pack. I could probably write this in probably 3 or 4 hours. I could research it in 2 and write it in 4, and be done. 6 hours, I could knock this out. All of you could probably research it in 2. At some point, some of you could probably write it in 4. Some of you it'll take you 8 because you have to write it out and outline it and write it out longhand first. I don't have to do that. That's just me. Some people prefer to do it that way.
And Dr. Lamb, they need to understand too, remember, that's why every task, there's 2 weeks involved in it, is coming in as a review this time. We know that it's still a work in progress, but we don't need it to come to a Sunday night and you are just beginning it. We realize that when after Sunday night, before you turn it in the next week for final grade, that there will be more work involved in what you do. But we need to see that you are well on your way and you understand what you're doing on Sunday night. Okay, for task 2, the APSO example includes an academic needs.
Yeah, what he's talking about is what was your most pressing need? Your needs assessment found you need to start task 2 with this was what we found is our most pressing need. That's all that is.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah, I didn't know what.
Start task 3. I talked about this Tuesday night. Dr. Revis is with us. Help your evaluator. When they start reading task 3, you've reminded them our most pressing, from our academic needs assessment, our most pressing need is reading fluency. My literature review then is going to be on reading fluency. My annotated bibliography, no, question from Latoya, if it's math, we need to narrow it down to a domain. You narrow it down to a domain once you know, your problem is math. You narrow it down on your bibliography on your annotated bibliography to your specific one. But your bigger problem is math, and then you work it down. Reading fluency, we worked it down to phonics. So set up task 3 with my academic and needs assessment said that my most pressing need is. My literature review is of that. From my literature review, I found that the solution to that problem is, and that's where I do my annotated bibliography. Make it easy and for the evaluator to follow you through, or your readers to follow your logic. Research
Actually,
paper is all
yeah.
about logic.
Yeah. Dr. Lamb, actually, everything you did in task 2 would be considered an academic needs assessment.
Sure. And then
So,
out of that
so
came
if
my
you put
most
a
pressing
title over
need.
the top of it, Ashante, that's what it would be. You did an academic needs assessment when you did task 2.
That's it. It says it in somewhere in the language in the tasks and prompts. The
Yeah.
task 2 is your academic needs assessment.
Right.
So as a result of doing 2, your academic needs assessment, my
Yeah.
most pressing need is.
Yeah.
I'm doing my literature review on my most pressing need, and I drilled down in my literature review and I found the solution to my problem. And I'm gonna do my annotated bibliography on it. I get some of those online sites that has all that stuff, and then it was recommended. I might have even, contacted one of these companies, these online companies, and they have all their research and graphs on these online sites that offer these educational solutions. They'd love to partner with you and get in your school district, because they might sell your school district something. And so they'll be willing.
Okay. I think that they got it now, Dr. Lamb.
Okay,
I
the
think,
different headings.
yeah.
All right. So if we,
Yeah.
Yeah. See right here, this is what we're talking about. Task 2 is called your academic needs assessment. Task 1 is called professional learning communities. Task 2 is your academic needs assessment. That's what all of task 2 was. And so we're just using the language of from my academic needs assessment or from my work I did in task 2, our most pressing need is set it up, make it logical, sequential, make it flow. And that's all it is. And then best practices is what we call task 3. Guess what your annotated bibliography is? It's an annotated bibliography of best practices. And that's how you get to them.
Yeah.
There's a process of how you drill down to get to best practices. We're leading you through that professional research process.
Yeah. And
then
Dr. Hamilton just said it, follow your template. The
Yep,
template
and
tells you
then-
exactly what to do. Yeah.
And then task 4 is your action plan. So what we've been doing all along is building an action plan, but there's steps on how you do that. You have to form a PLC and focus on your data. Then you have to do a needs assessment. Your academic assessment says, where are we? And what's our biggest problem? And then we do our research on what is the best practice to fix our problem. Then we write an action plan. That's the format that you do every time in strategic planning. Guess what? The school improvement plan is our example of a strategic plan for a school.
Exactly.
And we're just teaching you a strategic planning process, or what we call the school improvement planning process. This is how you do it. You can't just walk in to the superintendent's office or turn your school improvement plan in and say, we're going to do X, Y, and Z. Based on what? Did you run your numbers? Did you look at your performance data? I mean, is any of this from real or whatever? In my hand, right? This is a strategic planning document for the School of Education. I'm on this committee, and we had to go between our own data and from effectiveness. I got to work on this weekend. We have had to work through this exact same process that you're working through. This is the way you do it in real life. So we're right now, so I identified and got data out and got data from institutional research. And so I'm leading this group. And so we're to the point now where we're going to put our action plan together. We've got everything in it except for our assessment measures. I mean, I'll show you right here. Look familiar? This graphic organizer, persons responsible, resources, our goal, our indicator of success, persons responsible. I mean, we're doing our school improvement plan right here for the School of Education, and it works the exact same process as what you're doing. It works the same everywhere.
And they're
So-
going to see that graphic organizer over and over and over again.
Oh yeah, you're
And-
gonna see it over and over again. But again, those who ask us Tuesday, what if they don't want to enact our action plan? That's okay. The more realistic solutions that you pick, cost-wise, the more likely they are to enact some of your specific activities. But what we're most interested in is that you learn the process. You learn the language of the process, that you're able to converse in those terms and you understand how it works. That you just can't talk to somebody and say, we ran that program and it worked, well, let's do that program. You've got to do your due diligence. You got to do your best practices research, and that's what an annotated bibliography is. You do your literature review first for your problem, your best practices, your annotated bibliography research for the solution. That's the way it works, because people will question you. I mean, even people who like you and who support you, you have to be able to justify the decisions that you make in our business. You're working with public dollars. You can't waste them. You're held accountable for them and how you spent them. So once you've learned this process, it's going to stand you in good stead. We pretty much do this process in every one of the evidences, or slight variation. And in the APTEL later on, you're going to have to do a professional growth plan, same kind of thing. And then SCIP, you're going to have to do a marketing plan. Then you're going to have to do a cultural advocacy plan. Or you're going to have to build a master. They're all action plans, though. No matter what label we put on them, they're all action plans. And there's a process, and that's the accepted process in every one of these. And that's how you build a school improvement plan. It's a series of action plans that start with a PLC, a group of dedicated professionals who have norms and values and roles and responsibilities, and they start with the data. We always start with the data. That's what we do. All righty.
Dr. Lamb, we need to talk about case studies before it's due week 8, but we need to go ahead and make sure that the ones that were not with us on Tuesday night, that they understand our case study requirements as well.
All right. All right, case studies.
I'm going to answer this question while you're pulling that up.
The week before the case studies due, you Zoom. You can do this. So let's look at that.
Now this
Okay,
doesn't
so-
come until week 8.
Yeah.
But you need to begin thinking about it as you're meeting with your Zoom teams and begin making plans towards that.
Yeah. All right, so here are your directions. Come on, you can do it. There it goes. Read the case study and write a 1-paragraph response for each of the questions of the study. You do that as an individual. And then you do a Zoom link and you get together just like when you got together and did your peer review of task 1 and 2. You had something written in your hand. Well, that's why you have to write a 1-paragraph response to all the questions of the case studies. You share those with one another. Each team member shares their written response in the group. You're recording this. And then engages in a scholarly discussion of the responses by the Zoom master. The group consensus is desirable, but not required. And then you turn in that video for your group project. That is your group project, that scholarly discussion. So everybody's will be the same from that group. And then, more importantly, you write a 1-page, you as an individual, write a 1-page written reflection of the case study. Now, what we're looking for the first half of that reflection is in 2 parts, to be of the case study itself. What you learned from it, points, the relevancy of it. It should be highlighting the major parts of that. It's kind of an overview of the relevant points from that case study, of what you got from it. And then that's the second part, is the takeaways. You know, so you're in your written reflection, you highlight, you know, what the major points or what was you think was the major points and what was important in that case study, and then you tell us what you can take away from that case study that helps you or not help you. Wasn't helpful at all. Won't be able to use this at all, or I can see now that I could use this here or there, or this explains this or that. So the group project is just the video of y'all reading your answers and trying to come to a consensus on the answer that you've written, the paragraph for each of the questions. So let's quickly go through. So for the first case study, principal's instructional leader, it gives you the case study, and there it is. And then there's the 4 questions. You write 1 paragraph on each of those 4 questions. You do your Zoom, you share those, and then you upload that, and then you write a written reflection. Now, let me give you a little hint here. When you answer these 4 questions, before you share them with your group, you answer them in the context of what you've learned so far this semester. Did this principal do things the right way? Did he form a PLC? Did he do his literature review? Did he do his annotated bibliography? Did he set norms and values? Did he data mine his school? Did he make sure that he looked at his school improvement plan? Did he do all the things that we've taught you to do so far? Did he do those things in this case study? That's what we're looking for. Again, it's not an opinion piece. When you write your answers, look at, this is what I've learned that he should have been doing. Did he do those things?
And Dr. Lamb, they need to understand it's week 8, and it's week 8 on purpose because you will have completed the entire APSL by then to be able to very intelligently talk about, you know, whether he has or not. You've gone through that whole process.
The APSL will be under your belt by then, and you will be professionally capable at that time of passing judgment on him. Did he do the right things? Right now you're thinking, well, I don't know if he did or not, but 4 weeks from now, after we've gone through this entire APSL process and carried it through to the end, you'll be able to say, did he do all those things? Did he have to do all the work that I had to do to get the APSL done? Basically, he's doing an APSL. When you read the case study, it'll be an aha moment. Oh, he's doing an APSL. Did he do the same things you did?
And Dr. Lamb,
did he do his due diligence, or did he just take the shortcuts and take the easy way?
And your textbook readings and all of those readings, those should prepare you for this discussion as well. And this will let us know if you're doing what you're supposed to do on your own, because, you know, we can't guide every bit of that. We've put it out there, but, you know, all of that reading ties into all of this. So the language should come out when you have your discussions, you know, and we should see evidence that you are, you know, you are doing those things that you need to do on your own.
And so you come back to your case study materials folder here. You've got the directions, goes for both of them. Here's case study 1. Here's where you put case study 1 written reflection and your Zoom link. It'll take both of them. And then there's 2 and also where those go. It's just that simple. It's not very hard. Just upload your document and your link together there. It'll let you, you know, and it will let you do multiple submissions, so it won't be a problem. So if you forget and upload one and submit it before you do the other one, it'll let you go back and submit the other one. But you've got those multiple submissions. Those will be pretty easy, and it's basically, it's kind of like your exam on the APSL. Did you get it or not? And we'll have one for the APTEL as well. And you know, did you learn what you should have learned on the APSL and the APTEL? And we'll know by your case study. It's kind of the final exam. It will tell us whether you got it or not. That's what the case studies are for. All right.
Dr. Lamb, I just want to let them know. Now, we're not coming online next Thursday night. You've got a lot of work to do. And so you're on your own right now because you need to be using this time wisely. You've got task 3 to finish, and you know what you've got to do there. You also have, we'll introduce your action plan next week. You'll be working on that. You've got to come together with your Zoom team to do task 1 and 2 of the apps. So you've got a lot to do. So we're deliberately backing off for the next couple of weeks, and we'll let you know when we're coming back on again. When we bring closure to to evidence 1, the APSL, we will come back on again and introduce the APTEL, and we'll do the same thing at the beginning of the APTEL, until we know that you're on target, and then we'll back off again. Okay. Dr. Lamb, I think we've given them a lot tonight.
Yeah. Now, please remember that your instructors will be online with you every Tuesday night.
Right. And
They will and can answer questions for you again. But we won't just keep on covering these kinds of things.
Right.
We're going to give you a week off next Thursday to catch up. And according to how the quality of the work that comes along, we may come back the following Thursday. It may be the next Thursday before we come back. It's according to how it goes.
Play it by ear.
Now we'll be here every Tuesday. Every Tuesday. And
if they send me messages or go into my internship shell, I will respond back to them.
Yeah. Every Tuesday, your instructors will be here every Tuesday with a lesson. This coaching group that comes together, we'll reconvene, probably in 2 weeks, maybe 3, but it won't be more than 3. Might be 2 according to how the work goes. But we're here every Tuesday night, or they're here. They'll be with you every Tuesday night. I'll be with you for, most of those, is I've got a doctoral group that meets earlier on Tuesday if we run over. But I'm just here just because I don't have anything else to do. But these folks, are that you're in good hands. You're in good hands with them. Your instructors on Tuesday night, Dr. Stone, Dr. Revis, Dr. Shepard, Dr. Crawford, Dr. Hamilton, this is what they do. They are retired principals and current principals, and some have made it as far, assistant superintendent, but they're principals at heart. And so, this is what they do. This is not just something that in passing. This is their vocation, is training principals. And so you will get good value from them. I'm quite sure. So that's why we're here, to make sure you get good value, that you're prepared to plan when you go out there.
And
all right,
I will get this session recorded, and I'll get it out to your instructors later on tonight, and they will put it under it will go under week 4. So they'll email it to you, but it will also be found under week 4 for future reference. Okay. Okay, Dr. Lamb, I think that's it.
Okay, I just sent the last message. Thank everybody for being with us tonight. All the GardnerWebb faculty, thank you for all being here tonight. Dr. Hamilton, I saw Dr. Stone, everybody's here. And so appreciate everybody being here tonight. I'm quite sure I'll have time after class Tuesday night. I'll join you all again, so we'll see y'all Tuesday night.
Okay, good night, everybody.
Good night.